Hey guys, welcome back to DJ's Workshop. So today we're going to be working on the Eurovan. We're going to be putting a new ignition switch in. One of the soft spots on these vans is the ignition switch. They do tend to let go once in a while. If you look on the Facebook pages, people will tell you they're a real pain in the butt to try to replace. They're very difficult to get to and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to dive in. We're going to take this old switch out, put the new one in. We're going to see how bad it actually is. So hang tight and I'll walk you through it. Alright, so the ignition switch is obviously behind here, but it's behind all this plastic. So we got to disassemble a couple of things here. So the first thing is we need to take this plastic off the top and the bottom cover. And then we also need to take this bolster off because we got to access the ignition switch from underneath and up top. Alright, so what we want to do first is this little side panel right here has to come off because there's two bolts behind here that hold this bolster on. There are two little pins, little plastic pins right here. If you get yourself a little pick tool, you can take this pin and just shove it in like that. Okay, once you pop those pins in, then you can pop this cover off. Take this piece right out of here. Okay, so that comes out like that. Now you'll see the two bolts behind here. Okay, those bolts are 13 millimeter, so we're going to get those two out. There is another bolt that's hidden up underneath here, and it's a little difficult to see right here, but once I get this bolster off, I will show you where the bolt is located. All right, so first thing, let me get these two bolts out of here. Okay, so we get those two bolts out now. All right, you can see where those go. And then I got the bottom one out over here. So once you do that, then you're just going to grab this and pull it out of the way. Okay, and that drops right out. Now you're going to see this is where the other bolt is right here. On the top there is no bolt, there is a pin. Okay, so this pin helps hold it in place. And that pin goes right up in here. Okay, so here's where the other bolt hole goes through on the framework, and that pin goes in there. All right, so the next step is let me get these covers off. Okay, now to get these covers off, there's three holes, one here, one here, one here. So the two outer ones hold the covers together. This center one holds the covers to the column. So let me get those three screws out. Okay, the two screws on the sides are kind of like a self-tapping screw, where the one in the middle is more like a machine screw. Okay, and get yourself a long screwdriver, pretty good length, because it goes down probably about that deep into the hole. So if you have a shorter screwdriver, you won't be able to reach the screw with it. All right, next thing is we're just going to separate these two covers and take them apart. Okay, bottom cover just pops off. It does have your OBD connector on there, so you can just push that out of the way. Top one comes off. Okay, let's take that out of there. Now, once you have that off, now you can see the ignition switch. Okay, and the switch is right here. Okay, now the screw that everybody complains about, which is a real pain to get to, is back here. And in order to get to that screw, it's very difficult. So you need some kind of offset Phillips head. So if you have this type of offset screwdriver, that's probably going to be your best bet. You can use something like this also. I have something like this also. So let me get up in there and see if I can get the screw loose with one of these tools, and see if we can get that switch out of there. So on the back of the ignition switch, there's going to be a connector, and there's two tabs. You got to push those in, and then you can slide this right out. Okay, there's your switch there. Okay, so this is going to be the worst part of the whole thing, is trying to get this screw out. And basically what you got to do is you got to take, you can see it wiggling around there, the screwdriver. Okay, and you got to get it on the screw head and basically turn it just so little. You're only going to go like maybe, a fraction of a turn. But you got to keep sitting here and just turning it until the screw comes out. And then once the screw's out, you should be able to get the switch out. Okay, the screw just fell out of the hole, so let's get this apart and I'll show you what it looks like. Alright, so once that screw comes loose, then the whole switch just basically falls right out. Okay, so this is just stuffed up in there, and that one little screw is what holds it in, and that's the pain in the butt. So do yourself a favor, get yourself a set of these offset screwdrivers, because there's pretty much no other way to do it other than to use that. Alright, so we're going to grab the new switch, we'll pop it in, and bolt it back up. Alright, so here's our new switch. I guess it's made by Meyle, M-E-Y-L-E. This one actually came from China. I'm not thrilled about that, but what are you going to do? This is the part number, MEX0271, or it could be the 100-905-0013. But here's the new switch, okay? And we just need to swap the screw over, and then we can slip it back in place and try to get that screw back in there. Okay, so I was able to get that screw back in there, and that's probably the worst part of the job. It was just the little tedious part of getting it in, but it went in pretty easy. Once you can get the bit on there, it'll turn and it'll go in, and then it's not a big deal. It only took me like 5 minutes or so. When I put the switch in, what I did was I pushed it in, and then I took the key and I turned the key on just to make sure it was seated properly, and it did kind of click in a little bit once I turned the key. So you want to just make sure that thing is seated properly, and then once that's in, you re-plug the connector in, and okay, we can see that's working. And let's see if she starts up. Okay, so she starts up, so that's good. All right, so it's not as big a deal as people make it out to be. Like I say, the worst part is getting that screw out of the ignition switch. And fortunately, it's just one screw right there. Do yourself a favor, get a set of offset screwdrivers before you start it, because you are not going to be able to do it without it. I believe I used the small one. It comes in small, medium, and large. I think the small one was the one that I was able to get in there with. So we're going to get this all bolted back up together now, and it's just the reverse of what we did. So when you put this back together, this pin, stick it up in that bracket there, and then swing it over, bolt these two in, and then you can bolt this bottom one in. I got it from behind with the ratchet and a socket. You might be able to get up right up in here with a wrench, but it's only 3 bolts that holds it in. And put the covers back on, and then you should be good to go. Alright guys, if you have to do your ignition switch, I hope that helps. It's not too big a deal. You know, maybe a 20-minute job. Not the nightmare that people think it is. Like I said, it's just that one screw. Other than that, it's pretty easy. Alright, hope that helps. If you like the video, give a thumbs up, a share, a like, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.